I'm Christian at Vision Interactive here at the Dallas Digital Summit 2015 with Melanie Deziel. Thank you so much for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the founder of the Overlap League, which is a native advertising industry newsletter with jobs, events, and recent examples to help people get up to speed on the industry because it's growing, but it's also a tiny corner of the industry, so good to help people learn more about it. I'm also the director of creative strategy at Time Inc. So we have 35 US-based properties, and my job is to help create branded content programs that span more than one property, helping people adapt to, say, the different voices and audience of Sports Illustrated versus People versus Entertainment Weekly. So it's a big job and a lot of creative opportunities there.
Great. And your expertise is in this native advertising world. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think most forms of advertising, you sort of rely on all the tools and channels that are available to you to get your own message out to your audience. And one of those channels is publishers. I mean, publishers have massive audiences, and advertisers, understandably, are eager to reach those audiences. So what we do at Time Inc., and I previously worked at the New York Times and Huffington Post, so any of those roles, what we do is help advertisers understand authentic storytelling and help them use the tools and tactics that we use as journalists, as storytellers, to reach our same audience, help them tell stories that are interesting and engaging and funny, to really help them connect with our audience.
Awesome. And what are some of the best examples that you've seen, and maybe some of the worst too?
Yeah. So I've been really lucky to work with some of the best teams out there, you know, the publishers that I've worked for. And one example that gets talked about a lot is one I did when I was at the New York Times with Netflix and the series Orange is the New Black. So they said, you know, we want people to know it's based on a true story, and we want to connect with the New York Times audience. So what we helped them do was create a 1,500-word investigative piece using actual data and sources that showed the changing trends in women's incarceration. And we talked in a 3-part mini documentary to actual current and former women inmates to hear their experiences. So, you know, in that case, we weren't talking about the plot lines, we weren't talking about the characters, but really talking about the real women who experienced the things that happen on the show. And so that was a way for us to create really authentic storytelling that was around what the brand wanted to talk about. And that piece won for us the 2014 Best Native Advertising Award. So that's one of the big examples. There's a lot of content marketing out there, you know, in native advertising that's not great. And I think, you know, I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but a big issue I think is most folks just are kind of afraid to back away from their products and services, and so, you know, they kind of become that guy at the bar who's only talking about himself, and nobody really wants to hang out with that guy for very long. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there where they're really just selling or talking about their product over and over and not thinking authentically about what can I offer, what value do I have, what information, how can I teach my audience something or entertain them or help them solve a problem in their everyday life. So I think most of the content out there that doesn't do well is kind of in that vein, a little too focused on what you're trying to sell and not enough on what your audience really needs from you.
Nice. So since we're so inundated with all these marketing messages all the time, what can we do as marketers just to ensure a native ad's success?
Yeah, I think the big thing, it comes back to what we just talked about, just thinking authentically, what is your area of expertise, what is your area of authority, and what value do you have to bring to your audience? So, you know, one of the common examples that people talk about in content marketing is the Dove Real Beauty campaigns, right? Where they do the Real Beauty sketches of, you know, showing women that they're confident, that they're beautiful, that maybe their own view of their own beauty isn't as accurate as what the rest of the world is seeing. And at the root of it, they're a soap company. I mean, they could have made a commercial talking about residue, you know, and, you know, their cleanliness effectiveness ratio or something, you know, and that wouldn't have connected with people. But they sort of took a step back and said, okay, well, we're part of someone's hygiene regimen, we're part of their beauty regimen, and we're one ingredient in a long process that helps people feel comfortable and beautiful and confident. So let's have that conversation instead. So, you know, I think making sure that you're thinking about, again, that area of authority and what value you have to bring to your consumers, you're going to create an emotional connection with them and an authentic connection that will make it so that it will result in sales in the future.
Awesome. That's a great tip. So we're now at the end of 2015. Going into 2016, do you think native advertising is going to be just even more relevant, and any predictions?
Yeah, so I think, you know, native advertising is kind of a buzzword right now, and a lot of people are worried maybe that it's a bubble or that it's not going to be around. And I think it's important to remember that brand storytelling, brands are always trying to tell stories. You know, the advertorial has been around for over 100 years. So the idea of a brand trying to tell their own story and connect with consumers through storytelling is not new, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think what has changed is the tactics we use to do that, and you know, the different names that we call it, you know, whether it's advertorial, branded content, sponsored content, there's a lot of different names. I do think we're going to start seeing people embrace new storytelling formats. So I think a lot of brands have been hesitant to get into live streaming video like Periscope, and other similar live streaming. And I also think we're going to see the rise of virtual reality. We've already seen a few, GE and Mini Cooper both came out with something with the New York Times doing a virtual reality paid post. And so I think we're going to start to see more of that happening, really embracing new technology as a new way to create those connections with audiences through content.
Great. Thanks so much for being with us.